Hey everybody, it's Arlem Hawks. It's been a little while since I've done a video, and I thought it would be fun with Beyond the Lavender Fields releasing in about a week and a half to do a couple of videos answering your questions about the French Revolution. Last year, I did a series of videos talking about Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI and Robespierre and the Jacobins and the Federes and a bunch of a little bit more in-depth videos about the French Revolution. So today I'm just going to go over kind of a general history starting before Beyond the Lavender Fields and going until the end of the French Revolution. The French Revolution began in 1789 and lasted 10 full years until 1799. Beyond the Lavender Fields takes place in mostly 1792, and at this point France was under sort of a constitutional monarchy. They still had the king in power, but they had a legislature that was making a lot of the decisions for the country. But the people were getting kind of frustrated with the monarchy. Louis XVI was kind of blocking some of the revolutionary legislation that they were trying to pass. And Beyond the Lavender Fields starts just as they're kind of getting to the peak of frustration with the monarch. France is in a war now with Prussia and Austria, who have connections to the royal family and don't like that the revolutionaries are taking away power from the monarchy, even though they're still in their positions as a constitutional monarchy. Austria and Prussia want to restore the French monarchy to what it was before. In August 1792, the Federes storm the Tuileries Palace, which is where Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI are living, and they imprison the whole royal family. Soon after this is kind of the very, very beginning of the Reign of Terror, called the September Massacres, where throughout the country, revolutionaries were attacking royalists and there were mass executions and murders of a lot of people who didn't believe as the Jacobins did. The main part of Beyond the Lavender Fields ends like right after the September Massacres, and between the end of the main part of Beyond the Lavender Fields and the epilogue of Beyond the Lavender Fields, Louis XVI is put on trial and he is executed on January 21st, 1793. So 229 years from today, actually. And I don't really touch on that in Beyond the Lavender Fields, so that's not really spoilers. The sort of official beginning of the Reign of Terror is later in 1793. About the summer is when they really started pushing people towards the guillotine. And that lasted through 1794. The Jacobins were overthrown in the summer of 1794, but that didn't actually stop the killings. We kind of have this almost reverse Reign of Terror where everybody who was against the Jacobins now goes after and executes all the Jacobins. Now, during the Reign of Terror, it was really interesting in my research to find that among all the different regions in France, everybody kind of had a different experience with the Reign of Terror. You would have some places that weren't super affected by it, and you had others that were severely affected by it. And it wasn't all sending them to the guillotine either. In some regions, you would have mass drownings. In other regions, there were what were termed infernal columns, where members of the military would basically just line up and go through an area and just kill whoever they found. And these were mostly in areas that had high populations of royalists, people who were trying to fight back. And to get rid of their enemies, they felt like they had to use extreme measures. Now, all this time that they were dealing with things at home, they were also at war with many other European countries, which was really putting a strain on their resources. During all of these wars, there was one person that was kind of getting a lot of attention, and that was a young Napoleon Bonaparte. He was responsible for more and more victories that boosted French morale, and so he kind of gained a reputation as this great leader during this time when everybody else was kind of running around crazy trying to figure out what this Reign of Terror thing was doing. From 1793, 1794, through the end of the revolution in 1799, there were a lot of uprisings, and they weren't all royalist uprisings. There were also Jacobin uprisings after they fell from power. You had groups like the Chouans and the Vendéens, who were mostly lower class royalists who wanted a return to their former way of life, to the stability of that life, and also a return to their religion, as the French Revolution had wiped out basically all religion in France. And these people were all fighting against the Directory, or the Directoire, which was kind of this interim government between the Jacobins and the end of the revolution. This government was basically broke, and through all of their military escapades, they would take over countries like Italy and Switzerland, and they would make them pay taxes to France to fund the wars. Now, after France suffered a couple of big defeats in the wars in 1798 and 1799, Napoleon comes back. He was in Egypt trying to get the British out of the region, and Napoleon organizes a coup. The coup is successful, and they install something called the consulate, where they had Napoleon. He was the first consul, and then he had two co-rulers who were second and third consul, and all three of them kind of were the head of this military dictatorship. And that is seen as the official end of the French Revolution, the first one at least. And then in 1804, Napoleon gets rid of the other two consuls and declares himself emperor. And that goes into the Napoleonic War era. So that's a very brief overview of kind of the timeline of the French Revolution. If you have any other questions about the French Revolution, questions about Beyond the Lavender Fields, whatever, leave me a comment. I'm going to be making a couple more videos answering some questions that I received earlier and talking a little bit more about how Beyond the Lavender Fields came to be. So if you have any questions, drop them below. Beyond the Lavender Fields officially releases on February 1st. Although Amazon already has their copies and are sending them out, so if you don't want to wait to see it in stores, you can buy through Amazon and get it in 2 days. This is normal. The sellers, as soon as they get the books, they put them on shelves, they send them out. Amazon happened to get theirs. So go grab a copy now if you want to be one of the first to read. And I look forward to discussing my book and the French Revolution with you throughout the next week and a half. Thanks, everybody.